My father, a celebrated professor, was seen as a pillar of our Savannah community. But I knew the man behind the tweed jacket and condescending smile. After my mother passed, she left me her life's work, a priceless archive of our city's hidden history. My father demanded I hand it over so he could publish it under his own name and secure his legacy. He and my sister gaslit me, manipulated me, and tried to break me. They thought I was weak, they thought I would crumble. But they forgot one thing: my mother taught me how to tell a story, and hidden in her archives was a secret she never got to tell. This revenge story isn't just about a family feud. It's about a decades-long betrayal, a shocking extramarital affairs podcast, and a son fighting to give his mother the last word. This is the story of how I took back my life. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch. The air in my father's study always smelled the same: old leather, pipe tobacco, and intellectual superiority. It was the smell I'd associated with anxiety since I was a child. He sat behind his massive mahogany desk, a king on a throne of books, the afternoon sun filtering through the Spanish moss outside his window and casting long, judgmental shadows across the room. This historic house in the heart of Savannah, Georgia, wasn't just a home, it was a stage, and he was its perpetual leading man. "Caleb," he began, steepling his fingers. "Dr. Alistair Finch," a name that carried weight in the hallowed halls of academia and the gossipy circles of Savannah society. "And we need to have a serious discussion about your mother's collection." He said the word collection with a faint curl of his lip, as if it were a quaint hobby, like pressing flowers or collecting stamps. Not what it was: my mother's life's work. When Eleanor Finch died 2 years ago, she didn't leave me money or property. She left me a library. Hundreds of hours of reel-to-reel audio tapes, meticulously labeled journals, and half-finished manuscripts. She had been a renegade historian, a folklorist who believed the true story of our city wasn't in the official records, but in the whispers of its people, the Gullah-Geechee communities, the forgotten factory workers, the lonely widows in their crumbling mansions. She gave a voice to the voiceless. The archive was her soul, and my father wanted it. "I'd been thinking," he continued, his voice the smooth, condescending baritone he used in his lectures. "It's a tragedy that her research remains locked away in your spare room, collecting dust. It's time it was brought into the light, properly contextualized, published." My younger sister, Amelia, perched on the edge of a leather armchair, nodded in fervent agreement. She was his masterpiece, a PhD candidate in Southern history at the same university where he was a tenured professor. She was the golden child, the academic heir, while I was the prodigal son who had committed the ultimate sin. I'd left the ivory tower for a trade. I was an audio engineer. I worked with my hands. In my father's world, that made me little more than a well-spoken mechanic. "Dad's right, Caleb," Amelia said, her voice dripping with syrupy concern. "Mom's work deserves to be seen. We could co-author a book, a tribute. The Hidden Voices of Savannah, by Alistair and Amelia Finch. It would be the definitive text." The audacity of it sucked the air from my lungs. They didn't mention my mother's name as an author, not once. They spoke of her work as if it were a raw material they had the unique genius to refine. It was a familiar pattern, a lifetime of being told my perceptions were wrong, my feelings invalid. My father, the brilliant narcissist, and Amelia, his loyal lieutenant, had perfected the art of making me feel like the crazy one. If I argued, I was being too emotional. If I set a boundary, I was being difficult and ungrateful. This dynamic, this suffocating codependency, was the very air our family breathed. For years, I had accepted it. I had believed I was the problem, that my inability to meet their expectations was my own failing. I was trapped in a state of confusion, my love for them constantly at war with the pain they caused. "It's not collecting dust," I said, my voice tighter than I wanted. "I'm digitizing the tapes, preserving them. It's a slow process." My father waved a dismissive hand. "A technical task, Caleb. Admirable, but it's not scholarship. What the material requires is rigorous academic analysis. Something Amelia and I are uniquely positioned to provide. You simply don't have the training to understand the nuances." There it was, the casual, gutting dismissal, He wasn't just asking for the archive, he was telling me I was too stupid to be its keeper. "Mom left it to me," I said, the words feeling small and inadequate in that cavernous room. "Of course she did, son," he said, leaning forward, his face a mask of paternal patience. It was his most dangerous look, the one he used right before he went in for the kill. "She knew you'd be a faithful guardian, but she was a scholar at heart. She would want her work to have an impact, to be part of the academic conversation. Don't you think? To deny it that opportunity? Well, it would be selfish, wouldn't it? Selfish." The word hung in the air, a poisoned dart aimed right at my heart, and for a moment it hit its mark. The old familiar shame washed over me. The learned helplessness. Maybe he was right. Who was I to keep this from the world? I was just a technician. They were the brilliant minds. The dissonance was deafening. A voice inside me screamed, "This is wrong," while another, older voice whispered, "They know best." "Don't make a scene. I need to think about it," I mumbled, already feeling the walls closing in. Amelia's smile was triumphant. "Take all the time you need. We know you'll do the right thing. For Mom." I left their house and walked out into the thick, jasmine-scented Savannah air, feeling like I'd just survived a mugging where the thieves convinced me I'd willingly handed over my wallet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went into my small home office, the room that had become a sanctuary for my mother's legacy. Stacks of tapes and journals lined the shelves. I ran my hand over a box of reels, her elegant cursive labeling the side. "Interview with Moses P. Washington, Gullah Elder, 1988. This was my last real connection to her. Giving it to my father would be like burying her all over again. I decided to lose myself in the work. I threaded a tape onto the reel-to-reel machine, slipped on my professional-grade headphones, and hit play. The voice of the old man filled my ears, his words a rich lyrical tapestry of a forgotten time. I spent hours digitizing, cleaning up the hiss and crackle, feeling my mother's presence in the quiet spaces between the words. Around 3 a.m., I grabbed another box. This one was different. It wasn't labeled with an interview subject. It just said, "Personal. Do not erase." I had seen the box before but had always respected the boundary, assuming it was just private musings. But tonight something compelled me. My father's words echoed in my head. She would want her work to have an impact. What was on this tape? I threaded the reel. I pressed play. There was a moment of silence, then a soft click, and then my mother's voice. Not the confident, inquisitive voice of the historian, but a voice I had almost forgotten. It was quiet, hesitant, and trembling with a pain so raw it felt like a physical blow. "October 12, 1995, she began, her voice a fragile whisper in my ears. "She did it again. Alistair. He told me the departmental retreat ran late. A lie. I saw his car parked 2 blocks from her house. Dr. Genevieve Albright. The visiting poetry fellow. The one Amelia admires so much. He smells of her perfume, the same cloying gardenia scent she wears every day. When I asked him, he just laughed. He told me I was being hysterical, that my imagination was running away with me again. He's so good at it, so convincing. For a moment I almost believed him. He can look me right in the eye, tell me the sky is green, and I'll start to question what I see. Am I going mad? Or is he just that cruel?" So I ripped the headphones off, my heart hammering against my ribs. My hands were shaking. I stared at the spinning reels, at this ghost in the machine, and felt the foundations of my world crack. It went on. Tape after tape. A secret audio diary spanning 15 years. It was a meticulous, heartbreaking chronicle of my father's long-term emotional abuse and his serial infidelity. He hadn't just had one affair. He'd had a string of them, mostly with younger colleagues or graduate students who were dazzled by his intellect and power. My mother documented it all. The gaslighting, the lies, the way he would isolate her from friends, the way he belittled her work, calling it unsentimental nonsense in private, while championing his own. The most devastating revelation was the depth of his affair with Dr. Albright, Amelia's mentor. It wasn't a fling, it had been going on for years. My father had even used funds from a joint savings account, money my mother had earmarked for her research trips, to take his mistress on lavish academic holidays. And my mother, trapped in a marriage she couldn't leave without losing her home and her son, had poured her pain into the only place she felt safe, her tapes. She was a historian, documenting her own quiet war. The last entry was dated 2 weeks before the heart attack that killed her. January 4, 2018. Her voice was tired, resigned. He wants my Savannah research. He said we should publish it together to cement our legacy. Our legacy. He's spent 20 years quietly killing my spirit, and now he wants to claim the only part of me he could never touch. He thinks I'm a fool. Maybe I am, but I'm not a fool who keeps bad records. It's all here. All the proof. One day Caleb will find this. He's a good boy. He has a good heart. He won't know what to do. Alistair will try to take this from him too. I know it. I hope my son is stronger than I was. I hope he fights. The tape ended. The only sound in the room was the soft, rhythmic flap of the reel's end. I sat there in the pre-dawn stillness, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't grief from my father's betrayal. It was rage. A cold, clarifying rage that burned away all the years of confusion, all the self-doubt, all the guilt. He hadn't just broken my mother's heart. He had been actively trying to erase her, to absorb her life's work into his own bloated, fraudulent legacy. His words from her diary echoed in my mind. I hope he fights. In that moment, a new and terrible purpose bloomed inside me. My father wanted my mother's voice. Fine. I would give it to him. I would give it to the whole world. He loved the stage, the audience, the sound of his own voice. He wanted to do a tribute to my mother. Oh, we were going to do a tribute, all right. And I, the family's resident audio engineer, knew exactly how to produce it. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch. The rage didn't fade. It settled deep in my bones, cooling into a hard, diamond-sharp resolve. The next morning I called my father. The groveling, uncertain son was gone. In his place was a man with a plan. Dad, I said, my voice deliberately calm. I've thought about your proposal. You're right. Mom's work shouldn't be locked away. It deserves an audience. I could almost hear the preening smile on the other end of the line. I knew you'd see reason, Caleb. Excellent. Amelia and I will start outlining the book immediately. You can start boxing up the journals and tapes for us. Actually, I interjected, I have a different idea. A book is static. It takes years. Mom's work. It's auditory. It's about voices. We should launch a podcast. There was a pause. I had him. A podcast was modern. It was immediate. It would feed his colossal ego in a way a dusty academic tome never could. It was a stage that could reach thousands. A podcast, he repeated, the words tasting new and exciting in his mouth. Son, The Hidden Voices of Savannah, hosted by Dr. Alistair Finch. It's brilliant. A multi-platform approach to the intellectual property. Yes, I like it. I was thinking we could launch it with a live event, I continued, baiting the trap. To the Telfair Academy. We could invite the whole history department, local patrons of the arts, the press. We'll play the first episode for a live audience. Make a real splash, my boy, he said, his voice thick with pride as if I had suddenly miraculously become intelligent. You're finally thinking like a Finch. I'll make the arrangements. You just handle the technical side of things. Of course, Dad, I said. Leave the audio to me. For the next month I became a ghost. I told my friends I was on a tight deadline for a freelance project. I worked from home, my days spent meticulously editing, my nights spent listening to my mother's story. The project had 2 parts. Part 1 was the public-facing work. I would send my father and Amelia short, curated clips from the historical interviews. Innocent, fascinating snippets of Savannah's past. They wove them into a script for the first episode. A pompous, self-congratulatory narrative about the importance of oral tradition. With my father as the heroic discoverer of this lost world. He recorded his narration at my small home studio, his voice dripping with gravitas, completely unaware that in the room next door, my mother's secret diary lay spooled on my editing machine. Part 2 was the real episode. I worked like a man possessed. I took my mother's diary entries, her fragile, whispered words, and cleaned them up, removing the hiss, equalizing the volume, making them as clear and undeniable as a courtroom testimony. Then, I began to weave. I took my father's lofty narration and juxtaposed it with her reality. He would say, a marriage, like a city, is built on a foundation of trust and shared history. and I would seamlessly splice in my mother's voice. October 12, 1995. He told me the departmental retreat ran late. A lie. I saw his car. He would pontificate. The scholar's duty is to the truth, however complex, and I would follow it with her heartbroken question. Am I going mad? Or is he just that cruel? The final piece was the most damning. I found a recording of my father giving the keynote address at a university fundraiser 2 years before my mother died. In it, he paid a gushing public tribute to his brilliant and supportive wife, Eleanor, the bedrock of my life and work. I layered that audio over her final tired diary entry. He spent 20 years quietly killing my spirit. And now he wants to claim the only part of me he could never touch. The finished product was a 20-minute masterpiece of psychological horror. It was a sonata of lies and truth, a conversation between a husband and wife, one public and fraudulent, the other private and devastatingly real. It was the truth weaponized. The night of the launch event arrived. The Telfair Academy's auditorium was packed. My father and Amelia held court at the front, accepting congratulations from deans, old Savannah money, and local journalists. Dr. Genevieve Albright, my sister's mentor and my father's longtime mistress, was there, looking regal in a silk dress, her wrist adorned with a bracelet I now knew had been purchased in Venice on a trip paid for by my mother's stolen savings. She smiled at me as I passed, a warm, conspiratorial smile, and I felt a surge of nausea. I stood at the back of the hall, by the soundboard I had insisted on running myself. I looked out at the sea of faces, all of them ready to applaud the great Dr. Alistair Finch. Amelia caught my eye and gave me a little thumbs up. I gave her a small tight nod in return. A part of me felt a pang of sadness for her. She was a victim too, in her own way, a product of his manipulation. But she had made her choice. She had chosen his side. My father took the stage to a round of enthusiastic applause. He beamed, soaking it in. Thank you, he began. Tonight, we embark on a journey into the heart of Savannah, guided by the lost voices of its past, voices unearthed by my late wife, the brilliant Eleanor Finch. My daughter Amelia and I are merely the humble custodians of her legacy. It is in her memory, and with the help of my son Caleb, that we are proud to present the inaugural episode of our podcast, Hidden Voices. He nodded to me. It was time. I took a deep breath. My finger hovered over the play button. This was it, the point of no return. I hope he fights, my mother's voice whispered in my memory. I pressed play. His rich, familiar voice filled the auditorium. What is a city but a collection of stories? The first 2 minutes were exactly what everyone expected. Pompous, academic, safe. I could see the audience settling in, some smiling, others looking thoughtful. My father stood on stage, a proud, satisfied look on his face. And then came the first splice. His voice said, "A marriage, like a city, is built on a foundation of trust and shared history." And then, cutting through the speakers with shocking clarity, came my mother's whisper. October 12, 1995. He told me the departmental retreat ran late. A lie. A collective gasp went through the room. It was a small sound, but it was unmistakable. On stage, my father's smile froze. His head tilted slightly, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. Amelia frowned, looking over at me with a questioning expression. I kept my eyes on the soundboard. The episode continued. The juxtaposition grew more and more brutal. His public lies, her private truths. A low murmur started to spread through the audience. People were shifting in their seats, exchanging shocked, disbelieving glances. I saw Dr. Albright's face drain of all color. Her hand flew to her throat. She knew that voice. She knew what was happening. When the part about the stolen money for the Venice trip played, a man in the front row, a prominent lawyer and a family friend, turned and stared directly at Dr. Albright. The shame on her face was a sight to behold. The final crescendo was his gushing tribute to his bedrock, layered over her final exhausted words about him trying to steal her work. When the audio ended with her hope that I would fight, a profound, heavy silence fell over the auditorium. It was a silence filled with judgment, with horror, with the sickening thud of a reputation being obliterated in real time. No one moved, no one spoke. Then, slowly, my father turned his head and looked at me. The smugness, the pride, the intellectual superiority, it was all gone. His face was a shattered ruin. For the first time in my life, I saw him not as a powerful, intimidating giant, but as a small, pathetic man, exposed and stripped bare under the glare of the stage lights he had so desperately coveted. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Amelia was staring at him, her face a mask of utter horror and dawning comprehension. The perfect world her father had built for her, with her at his right hand, had just been revealed as a toxic, fraudulent lie. The tears began to stream down her face. I didn't wait for the fallout. I packed up my laptop, walked out of the auditorium, and didn't look back. I got in my car and just drove, the windows down, the humid Savannah air feeling clean and new. That same night I uploaded the episode to every podcast platform I could find. The aftermath was a firestorm. My father was suspended from the university the next day, pending an investigation. His career was over. Dr. Albright resigned. The local papers had a field day. The story went viral in academic circles, a cautionary tale of hubris and hypocrisy. My father became a pariah in the city that had once adored him. Amelia called me once, her voice choked with sobs. She screamed at me, called me a monster for destroying our family. I listened, and then I said, "Ain't destroyed it, Amelia. I just turned on the lights." I hung up and blocked her number. I never spoke to my father again. I didn't need to. My mother had already said everything that needed to be said. I kept the archive. I'm still digitizing it, and I continued the podcast, but I did it my way. Each episode I feature one of the voices my mother recorded, telling their own story in their own words. And at the end of each one I play a short clip of her, the real her laughter, her thoughtful questions, her passion for the truth. I gave her the last word. I gave her back her name. My life is quiet now. The ghosts are gone. The house is no longer a stage for my father's ego, but a true sanctuary for my mother's legacy. It turns out my mother was right. I am stronger than she was. Not because I'm better, but because she left me the one weapon a narcissist can never defend against, the unvarnished truth. And for the first time, I finally feel free.